Chapter 15 of Far from the Madding Crowd. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Recording by Tig Hines. Far from the Madding Crowd by Thomas Hardy. Chapter 15. A morning meeting. The letter again. The scarlet and orange light outside the malthouse did not penetrate to its interior, which was, as usual, lighted by a rival glow of similar hue, radiating from the hearth. The maltster, having lain down in his clothes for a few hours, was now sitting beside a three-legged table, breakfasting off bread and bacon. This was eaten on the plateless system, which is performed by placing a slice of bread upon the table, the meat flat upon the bread, a mustard plaster upon the meat, and a pinch of salt upon the whole, then cutting them vertically downwards with a large pocket-knife till wood is reached, when the severed lump is impaled on the knife, elevated, and sent the proper way of food. The maltster's lack of teeth appeared not to sensibly diminish his powers at the mill. He had been without them for so many years that toothlessness was felt less to be a defect than hard gums an acquisition. Indeed, he seemed to approach the grave as a hyperbolic curve approaches a straight line, less directly as he got nearer, till it was doubtful if he would ever reach it at all. In the ash-pit was a heap of potatoes roasting, and a boiling pipkin of charred bread, called coffee for the benefit of whomsoever should call, for Warren's was a sort of club-house, used as an alternative to the inn. "I says I, we get a fine day, and then down comes a snapper at night," was a remark now suddenly heard spreading into the malthouse from the door, which had been opened the previous moment. The form of Henery Fray advanced to the fire, stamping the snow from his boots when about half-way there. The speech and entry had not seemed to be at all an abrupt beginning to the maltster, introductory matter often being omitted in this neighbourhood, both from word and deed, and the maltster, having the same latitude allowed him, did not hurry to reply. He picked up a fragment of cheese by pecking upon it with his knife, as a butcher picks up skewers. Henery appeared in a drab kerseymere greatcoat, buttoned over his smock-frock, the white skirts of the latter being visible to the distance of about a foot below the coat-tails, which, when you got used to the style of dress, looked natural enough, and even ornamental. It certainly was comfortable. Matthew Moon, Joseph Poorgrass, and other carters and waggoners followed at his heels, with great lanterns dangling from their hands, which showed that they had just come from the cart-horse stables, where they had been busily engaged since 4 o'clock that morning. "And how's she getting on without a baily?" the maltster inquired. Henery shook his head, and smiled one of those bitter smiles, dragging all the flesh of his forehead into a corrugated heap in the centre. "She'll rue it, surely, surely," he said. "Benjy Pennyways were not a true man or honest baily, as big a betrayer as Judas Iscariot himself. But I think she can carry on alone." He allowed his head to swing laterally 3 or 4 times in silence. "Never in all my creeping up, never." This was recognized by all as the conclusion of some gloomy speech which had been expressed in thought alone during the shake of the head. Henery, meanwhile, retained several marks of despair upon his face, to imply that they would be required for use again directly he should go on speaking. "All'll be ruined, and ourselves too, or there's no mating gentlemen's houses," said Mark Clark. "A headstrong maid, that's what she is, and won't listen to no advice at all. Pride and vanity have ruined many a cobbler's dog. Dear, dear, when I think of it, I sorrows like a man in travel." "True, Henery, you do. I've heard ye," said Joseph Poorgrass in a voice of thorough attestation, and with a wire-drawn smile of misery. "'Twould do a mortal man no harm to have what's under a bonnet," said Billy Smallbury, who had just entered, bearing his one tooth before him. "She can speak real language, and must have some sense somewhere. Do you foller me?" I do, but no baily. I deserve that place," wailed Henery, signifying wasted genius by gazing blankly at visions of a high destiny apparently visible to him on Billy Smallbury's smock-frock. "There, 'twas to be, I suppose. Your lot is your lot, and Scripture is nothing. For if you do good, you don't get rewarded according to your works, but be cheated in some mean way out of your recompense." "No, I don't agree with 'ee there," said Mark Clark. "God's a perfect gentleman in that respect." "Good works, good pay, so to spake it," attested Joseph Poorgrass. A short pause ensued, and, as a sort of entr'acte, Enery turned and blew out the lanterns, which the increase of daylight rendered no longer necessary even in the malthouse with its one pane of glass. "I wonder what a farmer woman can want with a harpsichord, dulcimer, piano, or whatever 'tis they call it," said the maltster. "Liddy saith she've a new one." "Got a pianner?" "Ah, seems her old uncle's things were not good enough for her. She've bought all but everything new. There's heavy chairs for the stout, weak and wiry ones for the slender, great watches getting on to the size of clocks to stand upon the chimbley piece. Pictures, for the most part wonderful frames. And long horsehair settles for the drunk, with horsehair pillows at each end," said Mr. Clark. "Likewise looking glasses for the pretty, and lion books for the wicked." A firm loud tread was now heard stamping outside. The door was opened about 6 inches, and somebody on the other side exclaimed, "Neighbours, have we got room for a few newborn lambs?" "Ah, sure, shepherd," said the conclave. The door was flung back till it kicked the wall and trembled from top to bottom with the blow. Mr. Oak appeared in the entry, with a steaming face, hay bands round about his ankles to keep out the snow, a leather strap round his waist outside the smock frock, and looking altogether an epitome of the world's health and vigour. 4 lambs hung in various embarrassing attitudes over his shoulders, and the dog George, whom Gabriel had contrived to fetch from Norcombe, stalked solemnly behind. "Well, Shepherd Oak, and how's lambing this year, if I mid say it?" inquired Joseph Poorgrass. "Terrible trying," said Oak. "I've been wet through twice a day, either in snow or rain, this last fortnight. Cainy and I haven't tined our eyes tonight." "A good few twins too, I hear." "Too many by half. Yes, 'tis very queer lambing this year. We shan't be done by Lady Day." "And last year 'twere all over by Sexajessamine Sunday," Joseph remarked. "Bring on the rest, Cain," said Gabriel, "and then run back to the ewes. I'll follow you soon." Cainy Ball, a cheery-faced young lad with a small circular orifice by way of mouth, advanced and deposited 2 others, and retired as he was bidden. Oak lowered the lambs from their unnatural elevation, wrapped them in hay, and placed them round the fire. "We've no lambing hut here as I used to have at Norcombe," said Gabriel, "and 'tis such a plague to bring the weakly ones to a house. If it wasn't for your place here, Malter, I don't know what I should do with this keen weather. And how is it with you to-day, Malter?" "Ah, neither sick nor sorry, shepherd, but no younger." "Ay, I understand." "Sit down, Shepherd Oak," continued the ancient man of malt. "And how was the old place at Norcombe when you went for your dog? I should like to see the old familiar spot, but faith, I shouldn't know a soul there now." "I suppose you wouldn't. 'Tis altered very much." "Is it true that Dicky Hill's wooden cider house is pulled down?" "Oh, yes, years ago, and Dicky's cottage just above it." "Well, to be sure." "Yes, and Tompkins's old apple tree is rooted, that used to bear 2 hogsheads of cider, and no help from other trees." "Rooted! You don't say it. Ah, stirring times we live in, stirring times. And you can mind that old well that used to be in the middle of the place? That's turned into a solid iron pump with a large stone trough and all complete. Dear, dear, how the face of nations alter, and what we live to see nowadays. Yes, 'tis the same here. They've been talking but now of the missus's strange doings." "What have you been saying about her?" inquired Oak, sharply, turning to the rest, and getting very warm. "These middle-aged men have been pulling her over the coals for pride and vanity," said Mark Clark. "But I say, let her have rope enough. Bless her pretty face, shouldn't I like to do so, upon her cherry lips?" The gallant Mark Clark here made a peculiar and well-known sound with his own. "Mark," said Gabriel sternly, "now you mind this. None of that dalliance talk, that smack and coddle style of yours about Miss Everdene. I don't allow it, do you hear?" "With all my heart, and I've no chance," replied Mr. Clark cordially. "I suppose you've been speaking against her?" said Oak, turning to Joseph Poorgrass with a very grim look. "No, no, not a word. "'Tis a real joyful thing that she's no worse, that's what I say.